Hi, I'm Greg Dell, and today I'm here with attorney Stephen Jessup, and we are going to speak to you about disability claims with Principal Life, which is a subsidiary of the Principal Financial Group. And now, Steve, you know that Principal has individual disability claims, which are ERISA exempt, and group policies that they offer to employees of companies as an employee benefit that are governed by ERISA. And we've done a lot of videos where we talk about the difference between individual claims and group ERISA claims. But do you agree that whether it's a group claim or an individual claim, that Principal handles them in the same manner?
I would say it's basically the same claims review processing. The only thing that may differ is obviously on the individual product. I've actually have a handful of dentists with it, or people who own businesses, so you're going to be looking at financials and evaluations for that. But other than that, I would say the actual nuts and bolts of how they evaluate the claims are similar regardless of the nature of the policy.
Now, I know on the sales side that Principal's been trying to be more aggressive, I guess, in selling their policies to potential customers out there throughout the country. Have you seen an increase in Principal claims as of recently?
I don't know if it's a byproduct of that factor. I've had, I would say in the past year, probably more on average than usual, especially in the individual product. And I'm starting to see more and more ERISA-based group disability insurance policies as well. A lot of the policies too, I mean, quite a few, they weren't as common as say maybe the Unum Providence or old Paul Revere's, but a lot of older policies written by Principal, over a decade ago.
Now, we handle claims with all the companies. There's like 40 different disability companies, and some of them we just get the denials and we say this is typical garbage denial, and some of them are incredibly detailed and we say they did a pretty good job. Where does Principal fall in that gamut of the quality of their review and their fairness to a claimant when it comes time to review a claim?
Usually I find that especially in the cases of denial letters, it's usually not a 3-page denial with form language. They really go into what the review was, what their outside doctor said. Usually you see more often than not where they have multiple reviewers and they're reaching out to multiple treating physicians as well to try to get clarifications. So when you do get a denial letter for contact and it's a denial, whether it be individual or on the group side, it's usually a thicker denial letter that shows that they did actually investigate, evaluate everything with the claim prior to issuing that denial.
So Principal usually does a fairly thorough job of of reviewing the claims, but nonetheless, it's still always going to be subject to whatever their medical reviewer tells them that they
Correct.
hire.
Correct. It's always going to go back to what their opinion of their reviewers.
And in terms of when you're dealing on the individual side, do you find that those claims can be more complex to get approved than, say, a group ERISA claim?
I'd say they're more complex to get approved because there's usually other pieces and parts. There may be partial disability. There could be overhead expenses in businesses and loss of earnings calculations, pre-disability earnings calculations. So it can become more in depth because of that. I wouldn't say necessarily just because it falls outside of ERISA they do any less of a review, but it can become more tedious when you have to take into account earnings and business ownership and practices and things like that.
Well, in terms of volume from sales perspective and claims, Principal's not one of the top 10 companies around the country just on a volume basis. Them being a smaller disability block of business, do you think that they're able to pay more attention to their claims? And if so, is that a good or bad thing for a claimant?
I would say, yeah, that because of that, they actually do afford more attention. They're more detail oriented. I find in my own personal experience, especially on a handful of recent individual cases I have, I slap a letter off to the claims person, and usually within 24, 48 hours, I have a full written response, request for information from them. They're really good about providing that and answering the questions. So you do get information you need from them and they are thorough, they get back to you, they're not ignoring you. On the flip side, it's all dependent on the facts of the case, what the medical records and all those things are showing. If the case isn't documented well, for as detailed and in-depth oriented as they can be in assisting and answering questions, they're throwing that same thing into reviewing it. So if your claim isn't technically strong from a medical standpoint or vocational standpoint, they'll easily pick it apart.
I I think it's good that they have more time or maybe a better trained staff, to be
Mhm.
able to review these claims. But at the same token, if you're a claimant, it really makes you have to up the ante or really have strong medical
Mhm.
records and strong physician support because their claims people aren't going to be as rushed to just fly through a
Mhm.
file and necessarily say there is support or there isn't support because the doctor didn't do A, B, C, D, and E. So I think that there's a higher burden for a claimant, but they can also get a fair review of their claim.
Mhm.
So it's kind of this balance, but the claimants really potentially have to be more prepared in their paperwork and their monthly claim forms and their attending physician statements when dealing with Principal than they would with one of these top five,
Mhm.
bigger companies. So no matter what kind of claim you have with Prudential, long-term disability or short-term disability or a business overhead claim, give us a call. Any of our lawyers can help you anywhere in the country. We always offer a free consultation and we look forward to speaking with you.